Hello and welcome to Season 3, Episode 32 of Conservation Conversations with BirdLife South Africa. I am your host, Melissa Whitecross, coming to you live from Johannesburg. We are literally living in dark days, but never fear, as all of our shows are recorded and available on YouTube. So if you miss out because of load shedding, you can always catch up later. Tonight is a show with a difference. We can certainly all use some positivity in our lives. And for the next 45 minutes or so, you will be treated to the annual Owl Awards. But before we get to that, just a reminder that you can communicate with us using the chat and Q&A feeds in Zoom or on the comment feed on Facebook Live. You're also welcome to congratulate our awardees via these methods too during the show. We are on all major social media channels, and you can use the hashtag Conservation Conversations to let us know what you think of tonight's show. And thanks, as always, for the generous contributions towards our webinars, which help to keep these shows free for all to learn and enjoy. All you have to do is visit our Cricket page or EFT BirdLife South Africa directly using the reference webinars with your name so that we can track you down and say thanks. But on to tonight's main event. We're keeping the intro short and sweet because we have a very important event this evening. I'd like to give a big welcome to BirdLife South Africa CEO, Mark Anderson, and welcome him to your screens to officially begin tonight's virtual Owl Awards. Over to you, Mark.
Thanks, Melissa. I just need to be able to share. There we go. You can see my screen, Melissa?
I can. You can take it away.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Melissa. And perhaps before I start with reading the citations and the few introductions I have, I'm just like to congratulate Melissa and Christina Hagen and Andrew de Block on their perseverance with these Conservation Conversations webinars. Wherever I go, people are talking about them. They are absolutely fantastic. So well done to the three of you for organizing these weekly webinars. The Tuesday nights come around very quickly. I know a lot of effort gets put into organizing them. So well done to the three of you. Okay, so thanks very much to everybody who's joining us. I see we have quite a nice attendance, which is really fantastic. And I was looking through the list of attendees as we were waiting to start, and I saw lots of familiar names. And I also saw a few family members of some of the people who've received Owl Awards. I also saw members of bird clubs, where there are bird club representatives who are receiving Owl Awards too. So nice that family, friends, birding colleagues are joining tonight's event to support the recipients of these awards. So we've had a couple of years now of virtual Owl Awards events. With COVID, we couldn't meet in person. We did decide this year to have an in-person event again at Isdell House, because Isdell House in Johannesburg is such a nice venue for an event like the Owl Awards. And we're actually quite apprehensive about the weather, and the last week or so, Isabel, Himman, and I have been in regular contact watching the weather reports. And about 4 or 5 days ago, they were predicting rain all day in Johannesburg. Thankfully, it didn't rain, and it was a beautiful day. But thanks to Conservation Conversations and Zoom and our ability to present presentations virtually, I think it's really nice that we can redo the Owl Awards ceremony this evening and have me read the citations. And these can be watched tonight and then watched in future by the recipients, and also once they're on YouTube, shared with other people. They'll also be quite a nice resource in future for us to look back on the Owl Awards event and the amazing work that the recipients have done. Okay, so the last few days, or last 2 weeks, in fact, I've been in the UK, and I only came back yesterday morning. And I picked up a bit of a bug on the plane, or perhaps just before I boarded. So you'd have to excuse me if I have to occasionally pause to perhaps clear my throat or have a glass of water. I've got a whole row of glasses of water lined up in front of me. And the reason I was in the UK, and I was joined by Dr. Hanneline Smith-Robinson, our head of conservation, and Dr. Melissa Lewis, our head of policy and advocacy. The reason we were there was to attend BirdLife International's World Congress. These congresses are held about every 5 years. And this was a special one because at this Congress, we also celebrated the 100th anniversary of BirdLife International. Hard to believe that 100 years ago, the International Council for Bird Preservation, the precursor of BirdLife International, was started. And there was lots of activities over the week in both Cambridge and in London. And I was so inspired by what I heard and what I saw and the people I engaged with. And there was really superb presentations about some of the conservation successes, extensive discussions about some of the threats and how we as the BirdLife Partnership deal with them. But what was apparent to me when we did talk about what BirdLife International does and the 120 partners around the world, what they do, is that we're all part of this family and we're all contributing towards the success of the bird conservation activities around the world. And this is not just the BirdLife partners, such as BirdLife South Africa or BirdLife Zimbabwe or the Royal Society for Protection of Birds, but also the bird clubs, our affiliated bird clubs, our 40 affiliated bird clubs, and also all of our members. Everybody tuned in tonight is a supporter of BirdLife South Africa. Many of you are members of BirdLife South Africa, and I think you all play a small role in what we do and what we achieve. And in the statistics which are presented at the BirdLife World Congress, there was mention essentially of this global partnership of organizations with members and supporters who are contributing towards the conservation of the world's birds. So you're all part of that. And I think you can all give yourself a pat on the back for all you do to support the work that we're doing in our country to conserve our birds. Okay, then to get on to the Owl Awards, we have annual Owl Awards that have been underway for a number of years. You can go to our website and you can look at all the previous recipients of previous Owl Awards, and the way in which we can recognize the contributions that people and companies and organizations make to the conservation of our country's birds. And how it works is early in the year, we send out a request for nominations. This is sent to our bird clubs, to our members, and to our board, and to our staff. And we get a number of nominations. And this year, we got a very large number of nominations, which is actually really encouraging. And then the panel then meets, and the panel then has to whittle down those nominations to 12 recipients. 12 recipients being 9 Owl Award recipients. There's 9 owl species in South Africa, so we have 9 Owl Awards. 2 Eagle Owl Awards and an Owlet Award. And I can tell you now, we had our work cut out this year trying to select the 12 recipients, because every person and organization that was nominated, we felt deserved an award. So unfortunately, not everybody can be a winner, but the ones that are going to receive awards this year certainly deserve them. And the good news is the unsuccessful nominations will be thrown into the mix next year, and they will be evaluated again with all the new nominations as well. And it's a pity that we can't give out hundreds of awards every year, because there's certainly hundreds of people, companies, and organizations that are deserving of our awards. Okay, so there's our Owl Awards, and I'd just like to make just a couple of thank yous before I get going into reading the citations. And that is firstly the people and the bird clubs, staff, board members who nominated potential recipients of these awards. It was really pleasing to see these very detailed and well-motivated nominations. So thanks very much to everybody who submitted a nomination. And of course, thanks to the selection panel. Spent a lot of time reviewing those nominations and scoring them, and eventually coming up with 12 recipients. And then these beautiful bronze statuettes of a barn owl are made for us by Charles Greg Jewelers. Christopher Gregg actually was the sculptor. He made this, designed this owl, this barn owl, and he produces these every year for us. So I'd just like to thank Christopher. He's a very avid bird watcher and a very good supporter of BirdLife South Africa. Belinda Phillips at Charles Greg Jewelers has also been very supportive of our work, and a lot of our liaison with ordering these owl award statuettes is done through her. We had the in-person event at Isdell House this morning, as I mentioned. Isabel Himman organized that event. And just thanks very much to Isabel for all the work she put in. And then Melissa, thanks very much for hosting us tonight, and all the work that you've done to help make this evening's event a success. Okay, and just before I move on, just to say that there will be abbreviated citations in the November-December issue of African BirdLife magazine, together with some photographs. And also our communications manager, Andy Wasson, is loading this evening the citations and some photographs onto BirdLife South Africa's website. and he'll also be posting a couple of sentences or two about some of the recipients, all of the recipients on social media, either tonight or tomorrow, probably tonight and tomorrow. So thanks, Andy, for your help with that. Okay, good. So let me move on, and I'm now going to read these citations. And you just have to bear with me. The citations which I read and edited on the way to England 2 weeks ago, and again on the way back to South Africa yesterday, were very well written, very extensive, and quite encouraging to see what these recipients have done. I did edit some of them down, and it was actually quite difficult to edit them, to actually make them shorter, because there's just so much interesting information about what the recipients have done. And I think a lot of it is worth mentioning. Okay, so as I said, there's 9 Owlet Awards, and I'm now going to start reading these citations for the Owlet Award recipients. Okay, the first Owlet Award goes to Andre Marx. I think Andre is familiar to many bird watchers, not only in Gauteng, but elsewhere in the country. Andre's been interested in birding during his years, became interested in birding during his years at the then University of Natal in the early 1980s. He was privileged to be introduced to birding by Professor Gordon McLean, who at that stage was editing the 5th edition of Robert's Birds of Southern Africa. After relocating to Pretoria in 1984, Andre joined BirdLife Northern Gauteng, then called the Pretoria Bird Club. And after nearly 40 years of membership, serving in various committee portfolios, including as chairperson, he is currently the club president, a position he's held for the past 15 years. Andre was the representative of BirdLife Northern Gauteng and the Gauteng region on the Southern African Ornithological Society, and he served in the BirdLife South Africa Council for several years. Andre has been involved in various bird monitoring and conservation projects over the years, including the coordinated waterbird counts, and SABAP1 and SABAP2. He's a very, very keen atlaser, and he's been the regional atlas coordinator for the Gauteng and Northwest provinces since the start of the SABAP2 project in 2007. And he's been adjudicating local rarities and compiling a rarities report for the Greater Gauteng region for a number of years. He's also initiated atlas bashes to areas of poor coverage. I think some of you may have joined Andre on some of those atlas bashes. He's respected as an outing leader and an expert guide to various locations in the region, such as the Lesotho Highlands, Gemell, and Wakkerstroom. His phenomenal knowledge of bird calls and behavior, birding sites, and contacts with landowners ensures that every excursion is an in-depth learning experience on many levels. He's especially interested in bird outings with beginner birders, as he enjoys starting them off on their birding journey. Andre hopes to spend many more years birding locally and internationally when he is retired from his demanding career and has more time to dedicate to his lifelong passion of birding and the conservation of our country's birds. And I think many of you will know Andre. Those who joined the flock at sea voyages would have met him, and I think you'll all agree that he is a very deserving recipient of an Owlet Award. So very well done to you, Andre. Okay, the second Owlet Award recipient is to somebody that I literally speak to or engage with on a daily basis. And that's Carol Jacobs, who works for the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment. She's in fact been an official with the department and its precursors over a number of years. Currently, she's with the department's environmental programs. For 3 decades or more, she has been involved with environmental management of the Prince Edward Islands, including being a member of the department's Prince Edward Islands Advisory Committee. She's been the department's liaison person with the environmental control officers who spend a year on the island, helping to direct their fieldwork and preparing the reports for the advisory committee. A significant part of this work has been her input into the eradication of alien plants and invertebrates on the island. On a number of annual visits to Marion Island and to Gough Island, she has been the department's senior representative. On several of these visits, she has conducted environmental inspections of Marion Island, including week-long hikes to assess the environmental footprints of the island's field huts. Carol has also played a particularly important role in building the focus of biosecurity within the South African National Antarctic Program, or SANAP as it's known. She's coordinated the department's efforts to improve its capacity and practices to address the risk. This is the risk of introducing alien rodents, invertebrates, and plants to our subantarctic islands, particularly Marion Island. In all her environmental work relating to SANAP, she's widely regarded for attention to detail rigor of analysis, and firm stance principles. Her work ethic is exceptional. And as somebody who works with her regularly, I can certainly vouch for that. Carol is passionate and committed to see house mice eradicated from Marion Island. She further brings a firm adherence to process and ethical practices, and this has been of particular value for management of the Mouse-Free Marion project. This project is a partnership between BirdLife South Africa and the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment. With her island experience, Carol is a valued member of the Mouse-Free Marion Project Management Committee and several of its committees. And she also acts as the highly important liaison person with the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment. As Mouse-Free Marion Project Manager, Dr. Anton Wolford stated, we are very fortunate to have Carol as part of the Mouse-Free Marion team. Her depth of knowledge about the island and its management and her passion and commitment to eradicate invasive mice from Marion Island has been instrumental in achieving the progress we have made to date. And well done, Carol. And I think everybody who's listening in would agree that Carol is very deserving of an Owlet Award. And she visited the office today. I had the privilege of showing her around. I also chatted to her about the Mouse-Free Marion project and said to her that both her and I and Anton and Keith and Guy and Fani and everybody else involved in the project will be very proud if we can successfully pull this project off, which we believe we will do, and rid the island of mice and ultimately save the lives of millions of seabirds. Okay, moving on. The next recipient is Dave Hayter. Dave is the Acting Director for Biodiversity and Conservation in the Free State Department of Small Business Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs. And he's played a crucial role by supporting protected areas in general in the Free State. For BirdLife South Africa, he's provided vital and valuable support for the declaration of the 17,000 hectare Snowberg protected environment near Gemell and the 24,000 hectare Upper Volga protected environment near Harrismith. He's currently also assisting with the declaration of the second phase of the Snowberg protected environment and the proposed Jodello Nature Reserve near Freda. Dave is always willing to travel to new proposed protected areas, and his door is always open to BirdLife South Africa staff, landowner associations, and to management authorities, supporting them extensively in especially legal, governmental, and ecological aspects to efficiently manage and sustain these protected areas. During the declaration process, Dave engages with the provincial legal team to ensure that all documents and applications are up to the required standard, compiles all required documentation and site assessments, and runs the public participation phase before presenting the MSC with sufficient motivation to declare the protected area. His passion for the grasslands of the Free State is clear to anyone engaging with him, and without his expertise and guidance, protected area expansion in the critical Eastern Free State Highland, without his expertise and guidance, protected area expansion in the critical Eastern Free State high altitude grasslands would have been very difficult. His contribution to the conservation of the grasslands is invaluable. BirdLife South Africa appreciates his efforts to protect our threatened and endemic high altitude species, such as the pipit, Rudd's lark, sun-bald ibis. And well done, Dave. And really thank you for all you do and all the support you give to BirdLife South Africa. Our team, people like Ernst Retief and Karina Pienaar, certainly sing your praises. It's nice to have dedicated people in government departments like you. Congratulations to you. Okay, moving on. The next recipient is the Florence Educational Environmental Club. And I'm actually pleased that Priscilla Beaton and other members of the Cape Bird Club have joined the Owlet Awards webinar this evening because they are very involved with this environmental club. So Florence Primary School's interest in environmental education started in the 1980s when Johanna Swart and Charmaine Southgate, two teachers at this Cape Town school, started the environmental club. These two dynamic teachers took pupils on regular hikes, beach cleanups, and camps. The school tuck shop was set up with the primary aim of subsidizing the cost of these outings. In 2006, the current principal, Mr. Noel Isaacs, suggested the name Florence Educational Environmental Club, and FEEC, or FEEC as it's affectionately called, was then born. After 30 years of activities, 3 decades of activities, including tree planting, camps with environmental organizations, adopting penguins, chairing the Steenberg Environmental Teachers Forum, and being named a Platinum Eco School for 2016 to 2019, the baton was passed on to Nicole Thomas and Christine Rousseau. Those are 2 teachers at the school. During the past 2 years, the FEEC committee has grown to 10 actively involved teachers from grade R to grade 7, each responsible for a different activity. These include the school's Indigenous bird garden. It's really so nice to read that there are so many teachers at this school who are passionate about the environment and helping teach the pupils at the school about the environment. There are currently 70 members from grade 4 to 7 signed up with FEEC. And Priscilla and colleagues at the Cape Bird Club, I think Mel Tripp is also in this meeting. I think these are potential Cape Bird Club members in time. Since 2017, Christy Rousseau has been working closely with the Cape Bird Club, and together they've organized birding basic workshops, as well as outings each term to local birding venues, such as Rondaflay Nature Reserve, Kirstenbosch National Botanical Garden, Boulders Beach, and Silvermine. FEEC helps children find their own place in the natural world and a unique connection point. The school believes in the beneficial effects of environmental education and young people, the custodians and decision makers of the future. So well done to this club. I mean, it's really impressive to read what they're doing, to hear what they're doing, and it'd be so nice if many more schools around the country could replicate what the school is doing. We're very pleased to have Nicole Thomas, one of the teachers of the school, come up to Johannesburg today to receive the award on part of FEEC's behalf. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next one, and this next award goes to the Ford Wildlife Foundation. I think many of you would have seen the Ford vehicles being used by our staff and the staff from other environmental and conservation organizations, very well branded, beautiful vehicles, and I think some of you even drive these vehicles. For the past 5 years, the Ford Wildlife Foundation has contributed to BirdLife South Africa's efforts to conserve our embattled vultures and various threatened bird species in the grasslands of the Eastern Free State. The foundation has provided BirdLife South Africa with 2 top-of-the-range vehicles, one to support the important bird and biodiversity areas program, and another for the vulture project manager. Both positions require extensive travel, often across challenging terrain. BirdLife South Africa's research into lead poisoning in vultures, as well as the implementation of vulture safe zones in Zululand and the Northern Cape, would not have been possible without the foundation's support. The vehicles have also been instrumental in many other projects, particularly our efforts to better understand the distribution of threatened species, such as the black stork, tiger falcon, and southern banded snake eagle, as well as our efforts to better understand the breeding patterns of the critically endangered white-winged flufftail. The vehicles have also been used for stewardship work in the grassland biome of South Africa, from Dullstroom to the remote corners of the Eastern Free State. Our team has been able to meet with landowners who have had or plan to formally declare their properties as formal protected areas. It includes landowners in the Snoe protected environment and the Upper Volga protected environment. Vehicles have also been used to collect data for the Southern African Bird Atlas project and to host setup workshops. These projects have taken the Ford Rangers over every terrain imaginable, from desert dunes and rocky mountain terrain to grassy wetlands and boggy forests. Without the use of the vehicles, this work would not have been possible. We'd like to thank, in particular, Neil Hill and Linda du Plessis at Ford for the support they provide, for recognizing the importance of serving our country's threatened birds and the need for reliable vehicles to do so. So well done to the Ford Wildlife Foundation. And I always tell people the 2 things that conservators need is a computer and a vehicle. And without those 2, they're unable to do their work. So we really are very appreciative of Ford Wildlife Foundation's support. Okay, moving on. The next award goes to the late Joe Grosel. Now, Joe was a conservationist at heart since his early formative years. Although he had an unrivaled knowledge of the natural world, it is with and amongst birds that he flourished. He presented numerous natural history courses, catering for lay people and professionals, as well as training and mentoring bird guides and general field guides, topics ranging from an introduction to birds and birding to more specialized courses, not to ID, LBJs, and raptors. This he did in a unique, fun way, and he had loyal customers who returned again and again, as the attendees always learned something new on every course. He not only taught birding skills, but he also made birding fun. Joe was president of BirdLife Polokwane for 14 years, from 2005 until his retirement in 2019. The BirdLife Polokwane, some of you, or all of you, many of you will know, is the affiliated bird club in the northern parts of South Africa. BirdLife South Africa Bird Club. Continuing with the citation, Joe's tireless work and friendly demeanor made the monthly meetings fun. And under his watch, membership grew to over 100 people at its peak. I was fortunate to attend several BirdLife Polokwane meetings over the years, and I was really impressed with people like Joe and Professor Derek Engelbrecht and how much the members enjoyed these meetings. Joe was the driving force behind increasing SAST coverage in the Limpopo province. He also served on the Limpopo Regional Atlas Committee for SAST since 2007, was representative for the Limpopo province for turning Kruger green, and was a member of the South Africa Rarities Committee and several other committees. Joe's always been a wonderful supporter of BirdLife South Africa, and he encouraged birders to become a member of our organization. Excuse me. He also presented several talks and many courses to BirdLife South Africa, and he freely offered his services or advice when asked to do so. Joe was a registered professional natural scientist, author or co-author of several scientific papers, served as an advisor on several ornithological platforms, and was an outstanding professional ecologist involved in managing large private game reserves, game capture and translocation, and an environmental impact assessment consultant. Clearly a well-qualified guy who did a lot with his time. He was a gifted presenter and photographer, and his talks were always lively and inspirational. Joe, for those who knew him, and I think most of you knew him, was very humble, and there were undoubtedly many more accolades that can be bestowed on him. Joe's passion for birds has inspired a generation of birders and ornithologists, and he's therefore a very deserving recipient of an Owlet Award, a posthumous Owlet Award. As Joe passed away on 14th of August 2021, just over a year ago, he leaves a tremendous void in the Southern African birding and conservation community. We're very pleased that his widow, Lisa Grossel, was able to join us at Isdell House this morning. So yeah, congratulations, Joe. I'm sure you're watching birds wherever you are, and thanks to you, many people are interested in birds, love birds, and some following in your footsteps. And Lisa, we continue to hold you and your daughter Jade in our thoughts and prayers. Okay, going out to the next Owlet Award recipient, and this one went to Malcolm Gemell, and many of you have been birding with Malcolm, so he's certainly not an unfamiliar name or face to many of you. He was co-founder of BirdLife Sisonke, chairing the inaugural Bird Club meeting in 1985, and he continued to play roles on the committee until 2021. He co-founded the Sisonke birding route, monitored Cape parrots and blue swallows for many years in his area, and he also participated in coordinated AV faunal road counts from 1996 to 2008. He's expended significant energy in trying to make Nsekeni Vlei a viable conservation and birding destination, including managing the Nsekeni Lodge for 14 years and obtaining a mobile vulture hide for the reserve. His activities and enduring interest in Nsekeni and its management was key to the donation of a large sum of money to BirdLife South Africa to purchase camera traps to search for white-winged flufftails at Nsekeni. In 2009, Malcolm undertook a survey with Stuart McLean to look for Egyptian vultures in the region of Tina and Tsinsa in the Eastern Cape. Malcolm has been a very successful bird guide in the Sisonke area, including Sani Pass, and is well known for showing many people the elusive black-rump buttonquail. As a skilled bird guide, Malcolm has contributed to AV tourism in the Underberg region by guiding hundreds and hundreds of clients, thus stimulating an interest in birds and birding. He's a very important ambassador for birds, birding, and bird conservation in the district of Sisonke, in the greater KwaZulu-Natal, and in South Africa. So very well done to you, Malcolm. And it was so nice to have you at Isdell House earlier today to receive your award in person. Okay, I'm going to and this person, Otto Schmidt, is also familiar to many of you. And again, I'm glad that there are a number of people from the Cape Bird Club joining this webinar this evening. Otto, pictured there with his wife, Sandy, have been dedicated members of the Cape Bird Club for many decades. And Otto has participated in nearly every aspect of the club with his trademark enthusiasm and commitment. I saw his enthusiasm again today as I chatted to him. In addition, he has assumed leadership positions for extended periods. After being vice chairman of the Cape Bird Club for 3 years, Otto became chairman in 1989, a position he held for 10 years. provided the club with a degree of stability while maintaining the momentum of his activities. Another enormous contribution was his work as co-editor of the club's quarterly magazine, Promerops. This he did with Joe Hobbs for 17 years. The high standard of the publication has been widely acknowledged, and Otto prolifically for the magazine, both while editor and since. Otto is a talented writer, speaker, and photographer, and he's communicated his birding experiences, which span 70 years, to a wide audience. Many of his articles include entertaining and astute observations of local or garden birds, usually illustrated by his excellent photographs. Otto has conducted monthly bird counts for the past 2 years along the Upper Liesberg, close to where he lives near his beloved Kirstenbosch National Botanical Garden. He's also led regular bird club weekday outings along the Lower Liesberg and at Kirstenbosch, sometimes having up to 40 attendees at the latter destination. Testament to his popularity as a leader and knowledge of his local patch. Otto is an enthusiastic atlaser, and he and his wife, Sandy, diligently record sightings in their home Pentad. He's also taken an active interest in local conservation issues. Otto and Sandy have traveled widely in their birding. This includes all 3 flocks at sea, cruises, and 4 of the Cape Bird Club international birding tours. These were to Madagascar, Ethiopia, Ghana, and Costa Rica. His favorite birding destinations are the Kalahari and Namibia, and Otto has presented several talks about these trips at Cape Bird Club evening meetings, often drawing a large audience. He's taken the subject of birding, including the experience of flock to Marion, to wider audiences, and he recently spoke on one of Straight Nature's Zoom webinars. Otto and Sandy have been actively involved in the Cape Bird Club's high school program, helping lead small groups at the club's recent outings with Claremont High School. By sharing his love of birds with these teenagers and introducing them to bird lasso, he's helped mentor these young birders of the future. Very well done to you, Otto, another very deserving recipient of an Owl Award. And as I mentioned today, I'm always appreciative to you and Sandy for hosting me at your home soon after I joined BirdLife South Africa, and really my first trip to Cape Town to meet the Cape Bird Club Committee. Okay, now to get to the 9th and the last Owl Award recipient, and that goes to Pat Nurse, pictured in that photograph there in a familiar pose, talking to people about what they're seeing in the distance through their spotting scopes and binoculars. Now, Pat's interest in birds started when she lived and tended livestock on her farm in the erstwhile Rhodesia. There were security issues in Rhodesia at that time, so her and her family moved from the newly independent Zimbabwe to Botswana, where they lived for about a decade. This is where she really became involved in bird watching. She was soon seen as a very competent observer, and not only arose to become chair of the Francistown Bird Club, but also initiated biannual bird counts in Makgadikgadi Plains, as well as in the Okavango Delta. In this capacity, she became arguably one of the more respected bird enthusiasts in Botswana. Upon retirement from their business in Francistown, the family moved to Knysna in 2000. Yes, she soon showed her strengths in the local birding community. She's been a member of the Lakes Bird Club for the past 20 years, starting off as secretary and treasurer, and then being chair of the club for 15 years. In this capacity, she's ensured that the club and its members become active citizen scientists, including as car and quack participants. In the recent decade, Pat has proven her worth as a citizen scientist and submitted more than 820 SAST cards to the project. Not only does she see to the day-to-day running of the club, but she is also very active in the community, serving, for instance, on the Knysna Wesa Committee. She also makes very valuable contributions to organizations involved in environmental matters, such as the Pledge Nature Reserve and the Knysna Basin Project. She never misses an outing, where her customary exuberance and good cheer ensures that newcomers are made to feel welcome, that novices to birding receive appropriate attention in learning the birds. In this regard, one of her lasting legacies will be the tremendous effort she plays in encouraging and nurturing the youthful members in her community. To this end, she makes sure that newcomers on outings are given every opportunity to learn, and she assigns them subtly to the guidance of one or more of the longest-standing members of the club. The fruits of her effort can be seen with one of the cadet beginners who has now risen to become a well-respected wildlife guide operating out of the Addo area. The dedication to the encouragement of the youth also resulted in two of the junior members receiving an Owlet Award from BirdLife South Africa 2020. It was so nice that Pat joined us in Johannesburg today as well. So very well done to you, Pat. And I'm so glad that some of your colleagues and friends from the Southern Cape joined us this evening, including Leon Marshall, who sent me a nice message saying he was very pleased to see that you'd received an Owlet Award. Okay, so every year we also present one Owlet Award, and this gets presented to somebody who's 18 years or younger, and it also makes a contribution to BirdLife South Africa and or to bird conservation, bird awareness, birding in South Africa. And the recipient of this year's Owlet Award goes to this young man, Mario Valentine, who's only 11 years old. And I'd like to encourage you to all listen very carefully as I read his citation, because it is absolutely mind-blowing what this young man has achieved, young boy has achieved in his 11 years. He lives in Durban, he's an ornithophile, and has become an active eco-warrior during the last 5 years. This arose when he was an orca, so a killer whale, in a school play, and discovered that they were endangered. He then decided to clean the beach weekly. His first cleanup was on 28th of July 2017, when he was 6 years old. He has subsequently done over 200 beach cleanups. He helped birds at Umgeni River bird during the COVID lockdown and has raised more than 55,000 Rand in the last 12 months for bird conservation in Durban and in the Western Cape. His reforestation program started in August 2020 and continues to flourish. For his 10th birthday, he raised funds for indigenous trees to be planted in Segera in Kenya through the SAST Foundation. Excuse me. He has now planted or sponsored more than 455 indigenous trees in 23 countries through various local international environmental organizations, including with eThekwini municipality. He has recently started his own permaculture garden to learn how to grow his own vegetables. His environmental campaigns have resulted in him featuring in numerous media around the world. For example, Romario featured at the Global Citizen Prize 2020 awards event, and he's worked with the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification on several occasions to highlight land degradation, including an interview with the Executive Secretary on World Environment Day in 2021. He was filmed by the German environmental program Deutsche Welle and BBC Africa during the COP26 build-up, including for a podcast series Defending Our Water, which will feature climate activist Lewis Pugh. On 27th of November 2021, he was a panelist speaker at the Africa Green Awards in conjunction with the Swedish Embassy in Abuja. He also paints endangered birds and creates eco-art on the pollutants to raise awareness of environmental issues. He has featured in the book, What a Wonderful World, and his photos on the front cover alongside Greta Thunberg and Dr. Wangari Maathai. Mauro is only 11 years old, and he's a young boy with a vision for a better earth. His approach is to encourage other children, as well as adults, to do what they can with what they have through optimistic approaches. Unbelievable what this young man has done and will continue to do. In this picture, he's receiving his award from our chairman, Philip Kalenikos, and my response this morning after he received the award, I said to Philip, I think the succession plan for BirdLife South Africa CEO into the future is well sorted out. So very well done to him. And he came so smartly dressed to this event as well. And actually gave me a signed copy of his book for BirdLife South Africa's library too. So well done, young man. Okay, as I mentioned, we also present 2 Eagle Owl Awards every year. And the first Eagle Owl Award goes to the Isdell Tile and Ceramic Foundation. And that in the photograph is Susan de Toy, who is the chairman of the Isdell Tile and Ceramic Foundation, together with Philip Kalenikos, our chairman. So the Isdell Tile and Ceramic Foundation has provided significant support in the categories of education, sport, and conservation to various organizations over the past years. Since our first introduction to Gianni Ravazzotti and his colleagues at Isdell Tile, the foundation has supported BirdLife South Africa's then IBA program for a number of years. Following on from this, the foundation has invested in interest and financial support in the establishment of BirdLife South Africa's Empowering People program, supporting the position of the program manager, Nandi, and the Environmental Education Awareness Project in Northern KwaZulu-Natal. Funding from the foundation has been a catalyst for the growth of our empowering people activities and projects, including the current development of 2 livelihood projects in Tsakeni, Southern KwaZulu-Natal, and Dachakral near Wakkerstroom, Southern Mpumalanga. These sites respectively are important for the conservation of the critically endangered white-ringed flufftail and the endangered Boertus lark. The Ethelthal and Ceramic Foundation has extended its support to BirdLife South Africa's community bird guides through the sponsorship of a Wilderness Leadership School entrepreneur course for a select group of 8 guides. Susan du Toit, chair of the foundation, was instrumental in supplying BirdLife South Africa with the funding for the purchase of a vehicle earlier this year, which is required for the Empowering People program. In addition, Susan has also introduced us to many potential donors, and she's become a champion for BirdLife South Africa's Science and Innovation program. And this program is now responsible for the revision of our Red Data book. So I think you all agree that Ethelthal and Ceramic Foundation is a very deserving recipient of an Eagle Owl Award. And I'd like to thank Susan for her support, as well as Gianni Ravazzotti, whose company Ethelthal has been very supportive of BirdLife South Africa in many ways over a number of years. And I think you will probably all know that one of the more difficult things we have as a donor-funded organization is to raise the funds to undertake our important bird conservation work. It's really nice to have this of this foundation. So thank you, Susan. Thanks, Gianni. Well done to the foundation. Okay, the second Eagle Owl Award and the last award for the evening goes to Dr. Garth Batchelor, who I think a lot of you, and particularly on the Lowveld, should be familiar with. Garth's interest in birds started at an early age. At 10 years old, Fanny visited Charters Creek at Lake St. Lucia. The lake warden, Gordon Frost, had invited the family to drop off rations at all the pickets around the lake. On the jetty to the Hamilton jet boat, Garth identified a forest weaver, and this prompted him to say, "I see I'm going to have to watch my P's and Q's." This Gordon remembered when he mentioned it in his book, The Spirit of the Wilderness, 60 years later. Now, the Batchelor family had fantail pigeons at their home in Tongaat. These pigeons were constantly the target of raptors. And I probably shouldn't be mentioning this, but nevertheless I will. On one occasion, a falcon arrived and was too persistent, so it got shot. In those days, one could get away with those sorts of things. He could not identify the bird in his copy of Roberts, and he persuaded his parents to take it to the museum in Durban. The taxidermist, Mr. Bradley, took one look at it, and he said he could not identify it. He would like to keep it for his study skin. Many years later, Peter Milstein gave Garth a copy of a paper on sooty falcons, and this skin was mentioned as the first record of an immature sooty falcon for South Africa. Now, some of you may be frowning on this, but you've got to also understand that many people started their conservation ornithological careers as egg collectors and even collectors of birds and wing shooters. Garth did his BSc at Pietermaritzburg, where Professor Gordon McLean was one of the lecturers. After finishing his BSc, he worked on estuarine fish at the Oceanographic Research Institute. The recommendation from this research was that Richards Bay, which was destined to be a harbour, should be split with a natural sanctuary separated from the harbour itself. This recommendation was later implemented. Excuse me. After completing his BSc honours, he moved to the former Transvaal, where he worked for the next 20 years, firstly as a fisheries scientist, obtaining a master's and a PhD, and later as an environmental planner. He was responsible for motivating a number of conservation areas to be established. And listen to this list of conservation areas. Many of these are now places that we regularly visit. These are Rustenburg Nature Reserve, Light Canyon, Suikerbosrand, Barberton, Marievale, and Nailsvlei. He was also involved in the acquisition of new nature reserves, such as Boertusvlei, Pongola, and more importantly, Florence Dahlstrom. The importance of this latter wetland has been recognized for the conservation of the very threatened wattle crane. Apart from all of this, Garth has been involved in other conservation contributions, together with his friend and colleague, Dr. Warwick Tarberton. One of these was to convince the then Department of Water Affairs to follow an integrated environmental management process before allowing the construction of the proposed Olifantspoort Dam in the catchment of the Nail floodplain. The process led to other alternatives of water supply to be evaluated for Nailstrom, and the proposed Olifantspoort Dam was set aside. Flow calculations shown this dam would have prevented the Nile River from flooding the floodplain. So there we go. Garth and Warwick were involved in helping secure Nailsflay wetland as we know it today. The second 20 years of Garth's career has been dedicated to facilitating the development of an environmental management department in the Mpumalanga provincial government. Now, the work that Garth is most well known for today is his work on crowned eagles. And this is work that was initially started by David Steyn, who retired to the Eastern Cape recently, and Garth has taken over this work, and they monitor 42 nests of crowned eagles in the Lowveld, in the area of Mbolela. I always perhaps pronounce that word. And I traveled to the Lowveld and spent time with Garth in the field recently, and I was really impressed with not only his knowledge of crowned eagles, but just his general knowledge of birds and the environment. Every nest that's found, they record the coordinates of the nest, the tree species, the tree height, the nest height, and fledgling success. They also correct prey remains. The focus these days has been on the conservation of the crowned eagles and also trying to address the threats to the crowned eagles in the area, one of them being the chemicals that are used in the macadamia plantations in this area where these high density of crowned eagles is obtained. Garth is just a wonderful human being, and for those who have not been birding with him, when you do travel to the Lowveld, see if he's available, perhaps accompany him on a trip to the field, and you'll be encouraged and inspired by his absolute love for nature and his almost unsurpassed knowledge of the ecology of our natural environment. So very well done to Garth, and I'm so glad that Garth and his wife Laura were able to join us in Johannesburg today as well. So there we go, folks. That is the 12 Owlet Awards recipients. As I mentioned earlier, the information, the citations and photographs will be available on our website in due course. Look out for the November-December issue of African BirdLife magazine, where we will have brief citations as well as photographs of some of the recipients. We'll also be posting posts on social media during the coming hours. Very well done to the recipients. Thanks very much for all you do. It is really nice to be able to recognize your contributions in this relatively small way, because your efforts are ginormous, and it really is a small way in which we can acknowledge all you do to help us conserve birds and the natural history, natural environment of our beloved country. Thank you very much. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you very much, Mark, and a huge congratulations to the Owlet Award recipients. Certainly a fantastic evening's worth of citations and wonderful, wonderful work being recognized tonight. I see all of the applause and hearts coming through on the reactions feed here on the Zoom channel. Thank you for reading those citations to us and inspiring us. That young gentleman, Romario, certainly is a gem, as was described by one of our viewers, and may his conservation career grow from strength to strength. We certainly need more individuals like him, and a massive well done to all of the other recipients tonight. Thank you, Mark, for all of your hard work in setting up the Owlet Awards, and a big thank you to everyone involved in that successful event, both in person and tonight here on Zoom. Don't forget, everybody, we are back next week with another Conservation Conversations webinar. It's my turn in the hot seat with Dr. Christian Brink. So we will be bringing you round 2 of our secretary bird conservation project here at BirdLife South Africa. Some exciting work being done on those absolutely awesome birds, the secretary bird. So do join us, and there's lots more to look forward to as we wind our way down through the rest of 2022. But thank you for spending the night with us. If you'd like to leave any comments in the chat box, please do so, congratulating our winners tonight. I'll leave it open for a few more minutes. We don't have an end of webinar survey this evening, so don't worry if it doesn't pop up when you exit. But a big thank you to all of you who do continue to fill those surveys in and week out. We'll have another one back for you next week. Thanks so much for joining us this evening, everybody. I hope that gave you a positive 45 minutes and that you enjoy the rest of your evening. Stay safe. We hope the lights stay with you, and we will see you next week for another Conservation Conversations with BirdLife South Africa. Keep your eyes on the skies, keep enjoying those birds, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. Good night, everybody.